The New Orleans Saints absolutely need to get a win here in Week 5 against the New York Giants.
And quarterback Jaxson Dart looks to get the New York Giants their second win in a row for the first time since the 2023 season.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this amazing crossover Thursday, Locked On Saints and Locked On Giants. We are your hosts, Ross Jackson, here with Locked On Saints, Patricia Traina, the one, the only, the great, the GOAT, as my good friend Tyler Rowland likes to call her, over at Locked On Giants. And we're here to break down this Sunday matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the New York Giants. We're going to be taking a look at the keys to victory, including controlling the clock for both of these teams, some of the key matchups, leading off with some looks at pass catchers, but a big part of this game coming down to the run game, and two teams that need a win here in New Orleans, how they can get there. We'll break all of it down. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on each of these shows. Today's Crossover Thursday is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Patricia, both these teams, the New Orleans Saints and the New York Giants, have not gotten off to a great start this season. Things look to kind of be turning around for the Giants, but a big win here in New Orleans would certainly go a long way, but that might have just gotten a little bit more complicated thanks to this massive Malik Nabers injury, yeah?
Yeah, I would say so. It was interesting. Before that injury, the Giants were actually slightly favored to win this game, and now they are an underdog. And, how do you replace a Malik Nabers? The answer is you don't.
Shoot.
You absolutely don't. And the Giants are going to try and do that with guys they have on the roster already. And all eyes are going to be on Jalin Hyatt, a guy who really hasn't done a whole lot. He's kind of been an afterthought, despite the fact of being a third-round pick that they traded up for a couple of years ago. And, you look at how Jalin Hyatt has been deployed by the Giants those few times that he has been in there. Basically, he's been used on the open field. He's been used in the high red zone, whereas Malik Nabers has been used all over the place, the back end, the open field, the high red, the mid red, the low red. That's a lot of production for Malik Nabers, and that's just so impossible to replace. So how the Giants go about it, I have no idea. I don't know if they know how they're going to do it.
Look, for any team in the NFL, replacing a guy like Malik Nabers, who is, hyper productive, this incredible player. I mean, we all know him from here in Louisiana, watching him at LSU and watching, imagining an LSU team having to try to replace him and actually having gone through that. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. And obviously that's going to be a big one here. And so Saints fans clearly want to get to know Jalin Hyatt a little bit. And look, the Saints corners haven't necessarily been lights out here over the course of the 2024 season. Every single quarterback that they have matched up against as a starting quarterback has registered a passer rating of over 100, and the majority of them have completed over 70% of their passes, Patricia, going up against this New Orleans Saints defense, which is playing a lot of heavy zone and all that. So it doesn't take a Malik Nabers to have Malik Nabers type of production against this secondary right now. So maybe there's something there for the Giants when it comes to Jalin Hyatt after all.
There has to be. I mean, the thing with Jalin Hyatt that I think has been holding him back is twofold. Number one, he's not very physical. So even when he's got to find the soft spots in the zone coverage and he's challenged, you're not going to see him win very many contested catches. But the big thing, Ross, is that Malik Nabers has not done a good job, in my opinion at any rate, with tracking the ball when it's in the air. So a lot of times, he's misjudging it, and it just leaves him wide open to be, the recipient of a ball that should have gone to him, but ends up going to the other team. So that would be one of my big concerns with Malik Nabers in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a big one to watch. The Saints are looking for a bit of a bounce back from Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's had some up and down moments, starting corner for the team over on the outside. But they've got a really exciting rookie safety in Jonas Sanker, who he'll track the ball for you. Don't worry, he'll go ahead and take care of it. That's something that Josh Allen found out last week as the Saints hung around quite a bit going up against the Buffalo Bills after a week where they were absolutely embarrassed by the Seattle Seahawks. And that gets me to the biggest story for the Saints, Patricia. They simply need to be a better football team, and they need to find a way to get a win. Look, everybody knows that this is a rebuilding team. They haven't used that word themselves. They reverse that word, as most NFL teams are. But it's what we know to be true about this New Orleans Saints team. I mean, they traded for a guy that's on injured reserve, for instance, and there's no bigger rebuild move than sending off trade assets or rather draft assets for a guy that's not even going to be on your team here in 2024. And so there's a lot of the action show it, but there's still high expectations for this team to continue to improve. This game is probably the most evenly matched the Saints have been in a matchup, and that's debatable maybe going up against a team like the New York Giants that do have some talent and are figuring things out with now their rookie quarterback and Jaxson Dart. I think I would have been more comfortable for the Saints if they were going up against Russell Wilson, if I'm being completely honest. I think Jaxson Dart adds a whole new element to this game, in a game that the New Orleans Saints need to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the thing that Jaxson Dart brings to the table that Russell Wilson doesn't, his legs. Yep. Now all of a sudden
you just scared every Saints fan with that. You scared every Saints fan just now.
Got to account for Jaxson Dart possibly taking off with the ball. And last week against the Chargers, we saw some of that. The game plan was very simple: run, a lot of design runs, RPOs, and all that stuff. Short passes, quick passes, get the ball out of your hand quickly. And by getting a running game together, of which Jaxson Dart was part of, in addition to Cam Scatterboo, the Giants were able to control the clock, keep Justin Herbert off the field, win the time of possession battle, and win the game.
It's going to be a big part of it. I mean, look, the Saints have not fared well against mobile quarterbacks for some time. They are better a little bit this season. They contained a couple of these quarterbacks over the course of the season, but Kyler Murray was able to run on them. Mac Jones picked up a big first down run on them in a big situation. And then, of course, in the fourth quarter, at the most pivotal moment, that's when the Saints gave up a huge 20-plus yard rush to Josh Allen. And it just takes one or two plays to decide a football game. We've certainly seen that over and over again. And the Saints have given up some rushing yards to the quarterbacks. And so Jaxson Dart being a more mobile guy is certainly something that's going to be a big point to watch throughout this game. The other reason why I think that the Saints need to get a win here is because, in a way, Spencer Rattler needs to get a win. Patricia, I don't really care about the fact that he's 0-10. I don't think the team really cares either. They probably look at him as more as 0-4 because it's an all new coaching staff. But if Spencer Rattler wants to calm some of the voices around him, this is a major opportunity for him to go up against an opponent that gives them a winnable matchup, right? I'm not saying that the Saints are overall better than the Giants right off the bat, but a winnable, battleable, I guess, matchup here. This would be a big statement win for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the Saints' perspective, you guys got to decide if you have your quarterback on your roster.
Right.
You've got Spencer Rattler, who's starting. You've got Tyler Shuck, who's, waiting in the wings.
Yep.
Are they the answers? If it's not Rattler, maybe it's Shuck. If it's not Shuck, maybe it's somebody else you guys got to look at. So this is a big one, and especially with the quarterback class shaping up for next year's draft to be a little bit deeper than it was last year, or this past year, I should say.
Yeah, although I will say I have not seen a first-round quarterback in the in college football right now. They've all been awful, but we'll see. We'll see how things go by the time we get to the end of the season. And so, but all the more reason for the Saints to find their answer in the building right now. And so this will be a big step towards that. Coming up next, Patricia and I are going to dig into some of the big matchups that will decide this game, including, of course, the run game, which we're going to be talking about a lot this week. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with this crossover Thursday, Locked on Giants and Locked on Saints. Part of Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked on Saints and Locked on Giants is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the best place to go to make even more out of an already exciting weekend of NFL action at every kickoff. FanDuel is making sure that you have an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets back if your first bet wins. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5. If that bet wins, that's $300 in bonus bets for you to use across the app on other odds, lines, and game spreads. You can go into some player props, some same game parlays, live betting as well. Like if there's a favorite that's trailing at halftime, you feel really confident about that potential comeback victory, great way to check out our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, the New Orleans Saints favored for the first time this season, 1.5 points at home up against the New York Giants. What you waiting for? Head over to FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda makes cars for those who do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride. That's why they have more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August of 2025. From footwork to breath work, we watch all of these athletes sweat all of the details, and Mazda puts that same level of intention into how they craft every model. So you can see all of that Japanese craftsmanship in every single detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery as well, not to mention that great all-wheel drive that comes standard with every crossover SUV, making sure that you can drive with confidence in almost any season. You can also make everyday drives feel like anything but with that smooth handling and those intuitive controls as well. So just like the players that you know and love, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, everybody, continuing on with this crossover Thursday, Locked on Giants and Locked on Saints. Thank you very much for being here with us and checking us out wherever it is that you get your podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you're supporting both of these channels, Locked on Giants and Locked on Saints, as we are here with you every single Monday through Friday and then some, keeping up and covering your favorite team like nobody else. Patricia, you and I both have a overlap in terms of our matchups here when it comes to the Saints offense versus the Giants defense. And it comes down to the run game. Alvin Kamara, as well as Kendre Miller, the running backs for the New Orleans Saints, going up against the New York Giants rushing defense. Why is that on your list? And then I'll tell you why it's on mine.
Well, it's on my list because the Giants have been awful against the run on first downs, or what I call the money down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Obviously, you want to stop your opponent early. And the Giants, they are averaging 5.4 yards against the run on first down. That makes second and short not a problem.
Yep.
Third and short, not a problem. And when you start giving the opponent short yardage situations, they can do anything they want.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got this great pass rush that you want to unleash. You want to get them into obvious passing downs. And now if you're giving up big chunks of yardage on first down and even on second down, you're not going to be able to do that. So they just have to buckle down. And I think the big problem isn't so much, it's interesting. I thought initially it was missed tackles by the Giants. They're actually not too bad in the missed tackles department so far this year. There's like 17 teams that are ahead of the Giants in terms of missed tackles. The big problem for New York on the run defense is that A, they are not getting off their blocks, and B, they're getting caught out of position in some cases. The linebackers aren't filling holes, and they're getting exposed, particularly on the edges.
Yeah, that's going to be big in this one for sure. Look, the Saints have been outstanding in their run game so far after contact. And so if broken tackles are not an issue, or not as much of an issue for New York, one of two things is going to happen. Either it's going to become an issue for New York, or their secure tackling is going to become an issue for New Orleans. So we'll see which one ends up winning out there. The Saints average 4 yards per carry on first down rushes, but they convert at 75% on third and short, so less than 3 yards. So if the Saints are able to take advantage of that weak first down run defense by the Giants with Alvin Kamara and with Kendre Miller, like they did up against the Buffalo Bills last week, who are an even worse rushing defense. So we should keep that in mind. They were actually the pits. They were the bottom of the NFL when the Saints went up against them last week. Then it puts the Saints into some favorable situations, because they've struggled to stay on the field on third down. But when they get into those third and shorts, Patricia, they've actually done a pretty good job there, which is the opposite of what happened last year. A lot of last year, they were not as solid on third and short. They were almost better on third and medium, third and long in some situations. And so if the Saints are able to take advantage of that, that could be a big way for them to keep their offense on the field in front of a home stadium, which is a big piece of this game that we'll get to here in a little bit. So Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, the two running backs for New Orleans, they gained over 160, helped the Saints gain over 160 rushing yards after contact last week when they ran for almost 190 yards. So for me, it's going to be this run game as well. That's going to be big, but it's going to be after contact for sure. That's going to be most important to me in this one, I think.
Yeah, and that's one thing the Giants have to do. I mean, if you look at the missed tackles, a lot of them on film, guys are diving at ankles. You can't do that
Mm,
against pro
hmm.
running backs, okay? You have got to wrap them up. And if they're not taking, whether that's because they're taking bad angles, the Giants are, or whatever the case may be, you can't dive at a guy's ankle. You can't grab his jersey and try and drag him down. It's just not going to work. So
Yeah.
the Giants have been a little bit better with missed tackles of late. Again, it's not a huge problem, as I said earlier, but you got to wrap these guys up. Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, they're two big backs that you got to struggle to bring down. And an ankle tackle isn't going to do it.
Yeah, it's not going to work out for the Giants in that way for sure. Obviously, the run game will also help out Spencer Rattler quite a bit. Take some pressure off when it comes to that pass rush for the Giants. Really, really excellent edge rushers in particular. And of course, an all-pro right in the middle of that defense who missed Wednesday's practice, but only with illness. So don't get excited, Saints fans. Dexter Lawrence is going to be on that field. But you're looking at the Saints pass rush on the other side.
Yeah. The Giants, the offensive line, I feel like we talk about this every single year with the offensive line.
Yep.
Can they handle stunts? Can they handle the speed, the power, and all that stuff? Particularly, you look at the Saints and the figures I came up with, they have an 11.8% pressure rate on third down, the money down, as I call it, 13 pressures. They've been blitzing 41.7% on third down, and that has allowed quarterbacks an average of 2.75 seconds to throw. The Giants on third down, they've been terrible. There's no other way to put it. 2.81 average time to throw. They've allowed 15 pressures on third down, 33.3%, 3 of the sacks. And here's the other thing, with a rookie quarterback like Jaxson Dart, he's been pressured on 11 of his dropbacks. He's 0 for 4 in pass attempts on third down when pressured, right? And he held the ball on top of it, 4.15 seconds average time to throw. So you know what? 6 of the pressures that he has absorbed have been of his own doing because he's still that young, wet behind the ears pro quarterback. And, he's got to learn to get rid of the ball a little quicker. And that was a problem last week against the Chargers. I don't know that it's necessarily going to go away this week against the Saints, but that's certainly something they're working on.
Yeah, that'll be big. Saints right now last in the NFL in pressure percentage, 22.1%. They are dead last at number 32. But as Patricia showed, on third downs, you're doing things a little bit differently. And we've watched New Orleans be a different defense by week 4 than they were week 1. That's true for their offense too. A lot of things are shifting and changing. And of course, Cam Jordan's always looking for another quarterback to add to his sack list as he sacked so many quarterbacks in the NFL. So that'll be a big piece of the matchup to watch. On the flip side for me, looking at the Saints defense, I want to be looking at these corners who are looking to make a statement game, kind of have a little bit of a bounce back. Rookie corner Quincy Riley stepped in place of Isaac Yiadom, the veteran, at certain points last week. He came in as a rookie this year that has a really good propensity of taking the football away. So he'll be a big one to watch, number 29 for you Giants fans out there, sporting Paulson Adebo's old number, who of course will be making his return to New Orleans in this one. Everyone's hoping here in New Orleans for no revenge game for Paulson. But then when it comes to the opposite side, it's Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's had some ups and downs and has one of the best passer ratings allowed when targeted, as the closest defender, which remember is, for those of you listening, not the same as primary coverage player. Those are not the same thing. But in any case, there's something here that Kool-Aid McKinstry is looking to bounce back from, and not having to go up against his old friend Malik Nabers from the SEC will certainly probably help him get that done. Yeah,
again, Malik Nabers' absence is going to be so huge here because who on the Giants is going to draw double coverage? Probably nobody.
Right.
So you're going to have guys that are going to have to beat single coverage. Whereas when you had Malik in there, he would draw the double coverage, a guy on top, guy underneath, and that would create, better matchups for the other guys. You don't have that anymore. Yeah. So how, if you're the Giants, do you manufacture that? Do you hope that somebody like, Darius Slayton steps up and is able to draw that? Now, Darius Slayton can go deep. He's not a bad receiver. Is he a number 1? Not quite. I mentioned Jalin Hyatt in the first segment. Jalin Hyatt is still kind of wet behind the ears, and there's a reason why his targets have kind of dropped over since his rookie year. Who else do they have? Wan'Dale Robinson's a smallish, the slot receiver, quick, but I don't know that he's built to play on the outside every single snap. They could maybe plug in Bo Collins, who's an undrafted free agent. We don't know a whole lot about him. And then they have Gunnar Olszewski, who's really their punt return guy.
Right.
So really a huge hole for the Giants and a good test for the receivers to go up against the Saints corners.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson up against Alontae Taylor in the slot could be a big matchup to watch in this one. That could be a lot of fun. Both those guys, fun players to watch. All right, coming up next, we'll tell you what each of these teams need to do to get a win here in New Orleans as we continue on with our crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints and Locked On Giants brought to you by our friends at Game Time, the best place to go to pick up tickets, even if you're feeling spontaneous and you decide you want to go and cheer on your favorite football team at the last minute. That NFL season is here. And honestly, there's nothing better than being there in the stadium to enjoy all of the ebbs and flows, the excitement, the highs, the lows of an NFL football game. And I love Game Time. They don't just do football. They do a ton more as well. Comedy, concerts, theater, and much more. I pulled up Game Time. Just a couple of taps was all that it took. And I saw some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL teams for as low as $100. And right now, of course, you got that Game Time guarantee. Well, they'll make sure that you get what it is that you're looking for. Zone deals as well, where you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and use that promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, family, we are wrapping up this crossover Thursday with what each team needs to do to get a win in New Orleans. Patricia, what are you going to be watching for in this game?
Well, first off, I want the Giants to score on the opening drive. Take that crowd out of it. That crowd down in New Orleans, bless their hearts, they get loud. And you give them something to cheer about, they are going to drown you out. And even though the Giants have been preparing for that in practice this week, pumping up the speakers at max volumes. I mean, I could hear it all the way where I live, and I'm a half hour away from where the Giants practice. But take the crowd out of it by scoring first. Be efficient with your drives. Have a nice long drive, cap it off. That's what the Giants did last week against the Chargers, and it worked in their favor, being the home crowd, which drowned out the Chargers. So that's number one. But most important, Ross, the Giants better be better in the red zone. They have been awful in the red zone. They have converted 26.7% of the red zone opportunities for touchdowns, which is last in the league. They are doing 28.6% on goal to goal, which is 30th in the league. You know, they got to score. You get down to the red zone. I always say it on Twitter. I say it, in my podcast, field goals ain't going to cut it. So the Giants have got to get into the red zone. They've got to score. They've got to do quicker plays, not these long drawn out plays that take forever to develop, which is what they've done a little bit of this year, and just get into the end zone and move on.
Yeah, that's going to be big. And look, the Saints know red zone struggles as well. They're sitting at 50% though. And I think a lot of people think that's bad. But then, you look at the Giants hovering around in that kind of high 20s area, you kind of get an understanding of, hey, look, these are two teams that really need to see that red zone percentage and scoring potential there really tick up. I think both of these teams absolutely looking for that as well. For me, this comes down to getting pressure on Jaxson Dart. Anytime you have an opportunity against a young rookie quarterback, you got to go up against, and that there's so much of what Kellen Moore calls the unknown with that. What is he going to be able to do? What is he going to do differently as they continue to add wrinkles around him after now getting some game exposure and a big win against the Chargers that I'm sure no one really, was on the Giants side going into that game, yet they walked away with a win there. And now they're coming with that confidence here to New Orleans. And so getting pressure on Jaxson Dart is going to be a big part of it. I mentioned earlier that the Saints don't get a ton of pressure in terms of pressure percentage, but when they've gotten pressure, they've done a good job of converting that to sacks, something they used to struggle with quite a bit. We'll see if the Saints can keep that going. And then the other thing for me is just going to be getting off the field on third downs. The Saints are giving up third down conversions at a 42.6% clip, 27th in the NFL, not far behind the Giants, but that's going to be a big thing that the Saints are going to have to improve upon in this matchup is don't let the Giants all of a sudden get good when it comes to staying on the field or cash in when they get into those red zones. You've got to own the situational part of this game at home if you want an opportunity to win and get that first win of the season. So if the Saints can do those two things, I think it puts them in better position. But it goes a long way in saying that these are both teams that absolutely are desperate for a win here in this situation.
Yeah, if the Giants can win, they go 2-3, and now suddenly the season doesn't look as bad as it did maybe a couple weeks ago when they were potentially facing, an 0-4 mark or
Yep.
going into this game. So the Giants, if they can control the clock, if they can convert in the red zone, if they can just avoid the mistakes which have come back to bite them, it's not good enough to overcome some of the mistakes that they have made. They play as clean a game as possible. They're going to give themselves a fighting chance.
Yeah, it gives me it reminds me that a big part for New Orleans is playing discipline. They did a good job of that last week. Only 4 penalties after 11 the week before, 13 week 1. They've got to remain clean on their side of the game as well. It's a really, really good point. Kellen Moore said that they are a team that is not doing the things that winning teams do. They need to flip that script, and I'm sure the Giants are looking to do the same. Patricia, what's your prediction for this game?
I'm going to say the Giants win this one. I'm going 23-17. I think the Giants, again, the running game is starting to come alive, and that's a big thing that was missing earlier in the season for the Giants. Cam Scatterbo is now RB1 because Tyrone Tracy is sidelined with the shoulder, and he's a human bowling ball. I mean, he was running over guys like crazy. So, if they can get that balanced offense, which was missing earlier in the year, I think the Giants can control the clock and come out of New Orleans, which has been a house of horrors for them because they haven't had much luck down there. And they've been some wild games down there, but
very weird.
Control the clock. I think they can come out with a win.
Yeah, I'm going Saints 19, Giants 16 in this one. I just think the Saints are desperate to quiet the noise around them, and beating a team that is seen as beatable, heavy air quotes on that, is one way to keep the noise down a little bit as they continue their progress and process. Patricia, always a wonderful time getting a chance to talk to you. And of course, always a wonderful time getting to talk to you as well, tuning in for today's show. We'll see you here. Make sure you check out the Friday episodes of both Locked On Giants and Locked On Saints as we put our finishing touches on what's sure to be an entertaining matchup in the Big Easy. We appreciate you very much for being here with us, and we'll see you again soon here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team